Hey, Wannabe Gamer here with another Top War Hero Spotlight. Today we're going to be checking out the Chosen One, Aya, and as always, we'll be going over some of her strengths, weaknesses, uses, pairings, as well as some good skills and perks to have her equipped with. Now, at the end of the video, I'm actually going to go into her strengths and weaknesses a little bit more in depth, because her exclusive skill has a lot of moving parts, and I wanted to go a little bit farther into those. But let's go ahead and get the basic stuff out of the way like every other Hero Spotlight, and start with the bio. She actually hates both the Dark Empire and the Freedom League. So apparently the Dark Empire controlled her homeland. The Freedom League kicked them out, but destroyed her homeland in the process, so now she hates both sides. But she's fighting on behalf of the Freedom League, presumably because the Dark Empire stole some of her tribe's sacred items, so now she's trying to get them back. Moving on to her exclusive skill, the Force of Nature. This has a lot of moving parts. The very first part of it actually only affects the front row of your units, so slots 1, 2, and 3. And she is able to give them a shield of up to 90.4% of their HP at the beginning of the battle. So that is a huge boost, making her front line just a brick wall. The next of her ability applies only to the back two rows. So after the front row is able to attack, the back two rows start, and every time they attack, there's a chance that they can summon 3 to 5 Thunder Blasts that damage a random enemy target for 70.2% damage. And if an Air Force unit is the one who triggers this, it'll cause the enemy unit to take an additional 40.3% damage because it afflicts them with the vulnerability buff. So her entire exclusive skill can be used by any type of unit with the exception of the vulnerability. So she could work for Army or Navy depending on how you want to use her. Now, as far as some of her strengths and weaknesses, just going over the basics before I get in depth to it at the end of the video. Naturally, since she's an Air Force hero, she's going to be strong against Navy. She's also going to be strong in long drawn-out fights, which I'll get more into in a minute. She's also going to be good for going second. You know, if you are on the defense with her, since your front line is basically a brick wall, having the enemy attack that, it's a little bit more forgiving if you're not the first person to attack. Now, naturally, since she's Air Force, she's going to be weak to Army, but she's also going to be weak to Air, and I'll get more to that at the end of the video. And she's also going to be weak to any heroes that have procced abilities that do damage. So for example, Katyusha or Bellevue, who are able to hit random units, she's going to have a tough time with that. And like, again, I'll get more into that at the end of the video. Now, as far as uses, surprisingly, I don't think Air Force is good for defense, but the way her ability's set up, I can see her being a good defending hero for Air Force. And that it's a little bit weird, but also as far as her uses, I think she'd be great with the fortified formation. So in your base, you've got the formations that you can have. Right now, they only have assault and fortified. Fortified, once you upgrade it more, the front units have their HP increased, and as you upgrade it, some of the back units are able to increase their damage, which is basically what her exclusive skill does. So it basically amplifies what she has. So one of the uses with her could be defending with this formation on. It would make an interesting pairing, and I'll get more into that later. Now, as far as who I think she would pair well with, I think Dante would be a very good pairing with her because he's able to increase the attack and HP of units, so he makes that front line even stronger with the HP, and those back lines even have more attack damage, so just amplifying everything that she already gives you. Another thing would be Ricardo. I'm sorry, not Ricardo. Ricardo's a good option if you don't have your orange heroes. He's the purple hero I would recommend, but the other orange hero I would recommend would be Rockfield. Just because he does so much damage, you make that front line big, beefy, take a lot of damage, and then you get Rockfield to peel off a couple of units off your enemy so they deal less damage. They're just never going to get through your front line, so that's a great thing to do. Now, as far as the skills that I would have her equipped with, I would have her equipped with your random PvP skills. So if you have her exclusive skill to level 5 or better, you're definitely going to want to have that on. Otherwise, rare march size increase is always a good go-to. You want a damage increase, and then either an attack increase or a damage decrease on there. So those would be the recommendations for skills. And as far as the perks that you'd want to have her equipped with once you reach 5 stars and unlock perks, since she's a combat hero, naturally you're going to want to have all unit attack, all unit HP, and then I am advising her as an Air Force hero, even though her exclusive ability can apply to anything, with the exception of that vulnerability, I'm going to advise her as an Air Force hero, so you're also going to want to have Air Force attack and Air Force HP. So those would be the 4 recommendations for perks on her. Now, getting more in depth onto her strengths and weaknesses because it's a little bit complicated. I'm sorry this video may be a little bit out of order, but her exclusive skill is really complicated, and I can see it being awesome because the idea of having your front line basically being impenetrable because it just has so much health sounds great, but the biggest downside is all your firepower is in the back, which means your first 3 attacks don't have any boost because units 1, 2, and 3, your front row, are the units that attack first. So you're going to have to be able to survive long enough for those 3 units to attack, and then your back units can start attacking and doing real damage with those Thunder Blast she unleashes and the increased damage that they do. And that would be the problem with her. That's the big weakness that you're going to be able to exploit. So she's an Air Force hero, so naturally she's going to be weak to Army just because the Army is going to have the suppression advantage over her. But she's actually going to be weak to Air Force. Since Air Force attacks in a column from front to back, they're going to be able to attack your rear units that don't have an HP boost, and that's going to greatly reduce your damage because all your firepower is in those back rows. Another weakness she has, like I mentioned earlier, is any hero that can proc hit damage. So for example, Katyusha can attack 5 random targets. Bellevue, I believe, attacks 2 or 3 random targets. And if they hit those units in the back, that's greatly reducing your firepower. And since you have to go through 3 turns, presuming both sides have the same fire rate, you're going to have to go through 3 turns where they're going to be able to proc their abilities and hit your units in the back before you can really put out your firepower. So that's a big weakness to her, is anybody who's able to attack past that front line is going to greatly reduce her effectiveness. So I can see her being great if you have someone who can't hit your back lines. They're just not going to be able to get through your front line. But there's so many different heroes that can get past that front line. So, and also, if someone has Valhalla units that attack random units. So, for example, the most common Navy Valhalla, even though Air Force has the advantage over Navy, this is something that can get past her, is it attacks 3 times randomly. So it doesn't attack like a regular Navy unit hitting all 3 units in the back, or sorry, in the front. It just hits 3 random targets, which means it can hit the back where all your firepower is. The Army has a similar unit that can attack randomly, but this one's rarely seen, so it's not really even worth mentioning. But the Air Force also has a unit that's able to attack 4 random targets, or more commonly, you get this one that attacks all targets. So there's so many ways to get past the front line that even though her ability sounds amazing, I have some concerns over it because I can just see the fight being over before you can even get to your units in the back, or by the time you get to them, their damage is going to be so greatly reduced that I don't know if it's going to be effective. Her ability sounds amazing, and I could see it doing a ton of damage, but there's just too many ways to get around it to exploit her weakness that I think it's something to be concerned about, something to consider before getting this hero. Let me know what you guys think about this. This was a little bit of a weirder hero spotlight, but her exclusive skill was a little bit more complicated than some of the heroes. Let me know what you guys think below. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. But as always, have a fantastic day.